You are not lazy. You are busy as hell. Full calendar, constant movement, and by Friday, nothing that actually mattered got done. That is not a discipline problem. That is productive paralysis. You want to do everything, so you end up doing nothing that counts. You can have everything you want, just not all at the same time. The fix is what I call the 2-hour priority rule. One goal, 2 hours, nothing gets in. That single shift is what moves the needle. But first, you have to get honest about where your time is actually going. If you wrote down every single thing you did yesterday, hour by hour, how much of it actually moved you forward? Not kept you busy, not felt productive, actually moved the needle on something that matters. For most guys, the honest answer is maybe 2 hours, maybe less. And the wild part is they have no idea. They think they know where the time went. They are wrong. The day just kind of happens to them. They show up, they react, they respond, they handle things, and then it is 9 p.m. and they are wondering why they never got to the actual work. This is not a laziness problem. You are not disorganized. You are just operating blind. And when you are blind, you grab whatever feels urgent. The email that just came in, the Slack message, the quick thing a coworker needs. Urgent stuff has a loud voice. Important stuff just sits there quietly, waiting. That is fake productivity. You feel like you are working. You are not really working. Think about the guy who spends 3 hours at the gym but scrolls his phone for 45 minutes of it. He tells himself he trained. He did not really train. Same thing happens with your day. You are present, you are moving, but you are not actually doing the thing. So here is the fix. It is called a time audit. For 1 full week, you track every hour of your day. Not in your head, because your head will lie to you. On paper or in a notes app. Every single hour, you write down what you actually did, not what you planned to do. What you did. Yes, it sounds tedious. It is a little tedious. But here is what starts to happen. You see patterns that were completely invisible before. 2 hours a day buried in email. A 3-hour scroll session you somehow convinced yourself was just a few minutes. 3 meetings back to back that ended with no decisions and no next steps. You could not see any of that before because you were inside it. Most people who do this find they are losing somewhere between 2 and 4 hours every single day to stuff that does nothing for them. Think about that for a second. That is not a rounding error. That is a part-time job's worth of hours, gone every day, and you did not even feel it leave. The audit does not judge you for any of it. It is not there to make you feel bad. It just shows you the truth. And the truth is actually good news because it means you already have the time. It did not disappear. You just do not know where it landed yet. Think about it like checking your bank account after a month where money felt tight. Most people watch the big purchases and ignore the small ones. But it is the subscriptions, the coffee runs, the 2 a.m. impulse buys that bleed you dry. Same thing with time. You track the big blocks and ignore the minutes. But the minutes are where the day goes. The audit pulls up the full statement, not just the highlights. Your time works exactly the same way. The hours exist. You just have to find them. And once you do, the next question is harder. Because it is not about adding more to your day. It is about deciding what part of your current routine actually has to go. So you did the audit. You have got the statement in front of you. And now every instinct you have is telling you to add something. A better morning routine, a new app, another habit to stack on top of the ones you are already dropping. That instinct is wrong. The move here is not to add. It is to cut. Look at what the audit actually showed you. You have got hours bleeding out every day into stuff that does nothing for you. So the first real question is not what do I add to my day? It is what do I stop doing? Those are very different questions, and almost nobody asks the second one. Here is the uncomfortable part. A lot of the stuff eating your time does not feel like a waste. The email chain feels like staying on top of things. The check-in meeting feels like being a team player. The quick scroll feels like staying informed. They feel like work. They are not work. They are the costume work wears when it wants to look busy. And here is the tougher truth. Most people want the result without the process. They want to play the piano. They just do not want to practice. Be honest about which one you are actually doing with your time. So here is what you actually do. You build a stop-doing list. Not a to-do list, a stop-doing list. Warren Buffett has a version of this. Write down your top 25 goals. Then circle the 5 that are absolutely critical. The other 20? Those are not your backup list. Those are your avoid-at-all-costs list. Because those 20 will pull you away from the 5 that actually matter. They are distractions wearing the mask of ambition. Kill the meeting that has no agenda and no clear outcome. Check email twice a day instead of every 12 minutes. Stop multitasking, because multitasking is not a skill, it is just attention shredding. Every time you switch from your main task to check something, your brain has to rebuild its focus from scratch. You lose way more time getting back on track than you ever saved by checking. Every single thing you remove is one less thing pulling at your attention. Clear the junk or your pipe stays clogged. That is not a metaphor. That is just how it works. And clearing that junk does not just make things slightly better. It changes the whole flow of your day. Think about a day where you only had 3 real things to handle versus a day where you had 30. The 3-thing day feels different in your body. You move faster. You think clearer. You actually finish stuff. That is what cutting buys you, not just time. Mental space. Now here is where it gets real. Pick one major focus for the next 90 days. Not 5. 1. Decent progress on one thing beats 0 progress on 10 every single time. When you strip out the low-value noise, you end up with a short list. Maybe 2 or 3 things that genuinely deserve your time and energy. And that short list is exactly where your 2 hours come from. But here is the thing. Space does not stay empty on its own. The moment you clear it, something will try to fill it back up. A new request, a new distraction, a new reason to stay busy without moving forward. So you do not just protect the space by cutting things out. You have to build something that holds it. That structure is what the fortress gives you. 2 hours, 1 goal. Nothing gets in. Here is the system. Every day, you block 2 hours for one high-impact goal. Not 10 goals. 1. Maybe 2 if they are closely related. And during those 2 hours, the rest of the world does not get a vote. Most guys hear that and immediately think of every reason it will not work. I have a job, I have a team, I have kids. I cannot just vanish for 2 hours. And look, that reaction makes sense. But that exact mindset is what keeps you stuck in reactive mode. Putting out fires all day, getting to the end of it exhausted, and wondering why nothing actually moved forward. Here is the reality check. A distraction does not just cost you the time you spend on it. Research shows it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully refocus after a single interruption. So that one notification you glanced at for 5 seconds? That is not a 5-second problem. That is a 23-minute problem. So run the math. 3 interruptions in one morning just wiped out over an hour of real work. Not because you were slacking, because your brain had to restart 3 times. That is context switching. Every time you toggle between tasks, tabs, or conversations, you are not multitasking. You are shredding your attention into smaller and smaller pieces until there is nothing left worth using. And most people get way more than 3 interruptions before 10 a.m. That is what the fortress is built to stop. Phone goes in another room, not face down on the desk. Another room. Because even having it nearby pulls at your attention, even when you are not touching it. Tabs closed. Status set to unavailable. You are not being difficult. You are being serious. Now here is the part most people skip, and it is where the whole thing falls apart. You need to define the goal before the block starts. Not when you sit down, before. Because if you sit down without a clear target, you will spend 20 minutes just figuring out what to do, and then the block is already half gone. So be specific. Not work on my business. That is not a goal, that is a category. Instead, it is something like work on the landing page copy for 30 minutes, then move to the email sequence for the next 30. Specific tasks. Specific time. Your brain knows exactly where to go and wastes nothing getting there. And the best time to run this block? Before the rest of the world shows up. Early morning is when your decision-making energy is at its peak. The requests have not started yet. Nobody needs anything from you yet. You get your best hours before everyone else gets a chance to spend them for you. If you wait until the afternoon, you are working with what is left over. And what is left over after a full morning of meetings, emails, and decisions is not much. Also worth saying, stop trying to balance everything every single day. Some seasons are for career, some are for fitness. Trying to do it all at once, every day, is a recipe for doing none of it well. The fortress works because it commits to one thing per season, not 10 things per morning. 2 hours of real, locked-in, zero distraction work will do more for your actual goals than 6 hours of fragmented, interrupted effort. Every single time. Depth beats duration. Always. And the best defense for that morning block starts before you even close your eyes the night before. That 10-minute window the night before is what makes the whole morning work. Here is what actually happens without it. You wake up and immediately start making decisions. What do I work on first? How long should I spend on it? What counts as done today? That is 3 big decisions before your coffee is even ready. And every decision costs energy. So by the time you actually sit down to work, you have already burned through a chunk of your best mental fuel just figuring out what to do. That is decision fatigue, and it hits hardest in the morning when your brain is still warming up. The fix is 10 minutes the night before. Before you close out your day, you write down your top 1 or 2 priorities for tomorrow, and you give each one a specific time slot. Not a vague list, not work on project. Something like, tomorrow at 7 a.m. at my desk, I am writing the first draft of the intro for 45 minutes. The when and the where. That level of detail is what makes it stick. Vague intentions die fast. Specifics actually happen. When you wake up, the decision is already made. You do not think. You just move. The fortress block is already on the calendar. The goal is already defined. All you have to do is show up and start. And here is the key. Move fast. The longer the gap between your plan and your first action, the more room motivation has to quietly disappear. Speed to implementation is everything. The plan is done. So the moment you are up, you execute it. And here is something interesting. When you set a clear plan before you sleep, your brain does not fully clock out. It keeps processing in the background overnight. So you wake up not starting from zero. You wake up already a few steps into it. You have heard people say they slept on a problem and woke up with the answer. That is the same thing working in your favor here. Now add one more layer. An accountability partner. Text one person in the morning what you are going to do that day. Text them that night whether you actually did it. That is it. No elaborate system. Just a simple exchange. But that one step creates a social commitment that is genuinely hard to ignore. When someone else knows what you said you were going to do, you are a lot less likely to quietly skip it and pretend it never happened. Keep the whole setup simple. A basic calendar app and a notes app. That is genuinely all you need. Do not fall into the trap of spending 3 hours building the perfect color-coded productivity system. That is just procrastination wearing a very organized costume. A simple system you actually use every day will always beat a perfect system you set up once and never touch again. When tomorrow is planned before today ends, the morning stops being something that happens to you. You stop reacting and start directing. You already know where you are going before you even get out of bed. So stack all of it together. The audit shows you where the time actually goes. The cuts clear out the junk. The fortress protects 2 hours for the one thing that matters. And the evening ritual locks it all in before you go to sleep. Systems are the only thing that will keep you from being the exact same guy a year from now. And the good news is, you already have everything you need to build one. For more videos about time management and how to protect your peace, subscribe, and I will see you next time.